Emma had always been invisible. At 23, she lived alone in a weathered cabin at the edge of Coldwater Valley, a place so remote that even the mail carrier forgot her address half the time. Her parents were gone, taken by fever years ago, and the townspeople had long stopped checking on the quiet girl who kept to herself. She survived on what little her garden provided, and the occasional odd job mending clothes for ranchers who barely looked her in the eye when they dropped off their bundles. The winter had been particularly cruel that year, and loneliness wrapped around Emma like a second skin. She spoke more to the chickens than to people, and sometimes she wondered if her voice still worked at all. But she had learned to find peace in the silence, in the way snow blanketed the mountains, in the simple rhythm of survival. It was on one of those bitter February evenings, when the wind howled like a wounded animal, that Emma heard the gunshots. 3 sharp cracks that echoed across the frozen valley, followed by the frenzied snarling of wolves. She grabbed her father's old rifle from above the door, more out of instinct than bravery, and rushed toward the sound. The snow was deep, slowing her steps, but she pressed on, her heart hammering against her ribs. What she found made her blood run cold. A man lay sprawled in the snow, his horse fled, surrounded by 4 gray wolves circling with hungry eyes. He was clutching his leg, blood seeping through his fingers, his revolver empty and useless in the snow beside him. Without thinking, Emma raised the rifle and fired into the air. The blast startled the wolves, and she fired again, this time closer. The pack hesitated, then scattered into the darkness, their yellow eyes glinting with fury as they vanished between the trees. Emma dropped to her knees beside the stranger. He was older than her, maybe 30, with a weathered face and dark hair matted with sweat despite the cold. His leg had been torn badly, teeth marks evident through his shredded pants. He looked up at her with eyes that held both pain and surprise, as if he couldn't quite believe someone had appeared in this godforsaken place. She didn't waste time with questions. Using every ounce of strength she possessed, Emma dragged him through the snow toward her cabin. He was heavy, his body limp with exhaustion and blood loss, but she refused to leave him. By the time she got him inside and onto her bed, her arms were trembling, and her dress was soaked with melted snow and his blood. For 3 days, Emma fought to save his life. She cleaned his wounds with whiskey, stitched them with steady hands her mother had taught her years ago, and kept him warm with every blanket she owned. Fever gripped him, and in his delirium he called out names she didn't recognize, spoke of cattle drives and broken promises, of a brother lost to the range. Emma stayed beside him, placing cool cloths on his forehead, spooning broth between his cracked lips, never once leaving his side. On the 4th morning, his eyes finally opened clearly. He stared at her for a long moment, taking in her plain dress, her tangled brown hair, her tired but gentle face. His name was James, he told her in a voice rough from disuse. He was a ranch foreman from 3 counties over, tracking strays when the wolves had ambushed him. He owed her his life, he said, and the way he looked at her made Emma feel seen for the first time in years. James stayed as he healed, and the cabin that had been so silent for so long filled with conversation and laughter. He fixed her roof, reinforced her chicken coop, chopped enough firewood to last through spring. But more than that, he listened. He asked about her parents, her garden, her dreams. He didn't look through her the way others did. He saw Emma, truly saw her, and in his eyes she wasn't invisible at all. When his leg was strong enough, Emma expected him to leave. She had prepared herself for it, built walls around her heart to cushion the inevitable goodbye, but James didn't go. Instead, one morning as the first crocuses pushed through the melting snow, he took her hand in his calloused one and asked if she would consider a future where neither of them had to be alone again. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She had saved him from wolves, but he had saved her from something far more dangerous, the slow disappearance of hope. She said yes, not because she needed rescuing, but because she had found something she never expected in her lonely existence. She had found someone who valued the quiet strength it took to survive alone, who recognized courage in her simple act of kindness, who saw beauty in her isolation rather than strangeness. They married that spring in the small church in town, with a handful of ranchers as witnesses, people who finally saw Emma standing beside someone who cherished her. As James slipped the ring onto her finger, Emma realized that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the smallest acts of compassion. She had expected nothing when she ran into that frozen night. She had simply done what her heart told her was right. And somehow, in saving a stranger's life, she had found her own.